All right, gotta let it breathe while I get the Facebook groups in here. All right, save the changes. Hope we get a couple green check marks here in a minute and we can get going. All right, got one. All right, are we gonna get that second one? There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and unfortunately tonight I am by myself, as about 2 hours ago, Lance started having some internet issues and his internet's basically died on him, and it was too short notice, and people have lives, and so we weren't able to get somebody to fill in. But here I am. It's going to be a shorter show, probably about a half hour, since I'm doing it by myself and everything. And excited to be here. Hope everybody else is excited to be here on a wonderful Friday night, although it is the summer, and I know a lot of places, especially here, it's really nice outside, and I know a lot of people are wanting to get outside and be outdoorsy before the season starts. But that said, we have a good conversation, I think, about some players who are on the hot seat. I'm going to try to throw some names out there that are definitely that I think might be a little bit under the radar, and of course, some of them are going to get a lot of flack for it, I am sure. So that is something that is always going to happen. No matter what, we're always going to have to take. Can't please everybody. But if you guys have any of your opinions, and I see a couple people, or I see Todd in the chat coming in with some of them, I hope you guys continue that conversation and bring some in there, and I'll address them as well. But before we get into it, I do want to say hello and thank you to David Papa Bear McGilrath with a $5 donation. Thank you, Papa Bear. We appreciate that. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Hashtag 13-4. I am currently right there with you. That's where I'm sitting on the Broncos record projection for the season. Obviously, it's still very early, and when we get around to making our record predictions right before the season starts, on that episode of Dev Valley Deep Divers, after seeing what the team does in training camp in the preseason, my prediction might change, but right now it's 13-4. We have Ernie Mays coming in saying, "Go Broncos country only. Go Bo Nix for 6. Bo Nix 13-4 and beyond." Shiloh coming in saying he's going to go see the new John Wick movie, so I'll catch everyone on the rewatch. I hope you enjoy the movie, Shiloh. It's one of the movies that I'm looking forward to seeing this off season, or during my downtime during the off season, I guess. One of the many movies over the summer that I'm looking forward to seeing. And getting into the conversation with Todd Ossendorf here, he says, Audric Estime seat is like the seat is lava game. He should absolutely be feeling the burn of having J.K. Dobbins here to take his spot from him, because Dobbins fumbles once out of every 244 carries. Yeah, Dobbins has fumbled twice in his career, and both of them came his rookie season. Ball security isn't a question. While I wouldn't say he's a great pass protector, it is something that he does quite well. He's not a great receiver out of the backfield, but he can be used as that. And he can carry some of that short yardage power game. He's listed about 215 pounds. He plays about 220, and he's got a little bit more burst than we've ever seen out of Audric Estime. And taking one step forward, not only fumbles one every 244 carries, he fumbles one every 268.5 touches total. That's including receptions over his career. So you don't have those concerns with J.K. Dobbins that you do with Audric Estime. Granted, Estime, after he had those 2 fumbles on his first 9 carries last season, he did get settled down a little bit. Ball security improved, and he didn't fumble over the rest of the season. But hey, 2 fumbles on your first 9 carries, that's still going to leave a sour taste in the mouth of your head coach. And Sean Payton, he doesn't like he doesn't like players who turn the ball over. And I'm assuming here that's probably grown a little bit more with the way the NFL game has changed. When possessions per game drop, the last thing you want to do is give the team extra possessions. You don't want to give possessions away. That's always been the case, but as possessions per game drop, again, it's probably just heightened even more a little bit. So I am with you right there. Audric Estime was actually going to be one of the ones I brought up tonight that I think he can very well be on the way out. But you also add in here of Michael Burton is all in likelihood making the team. So that is at least 3 running backs on the roster. One, just a little bit of a being precise here, being correct. Michael Burton's a fullback, not a running back. Different positions do different things. And I don't necessarily think that Michael Burton's going to make the roster. With the way that you can call players up off the practice squad, I think Michael Burton is going to do what he did last year. Michael Burton didn't make the 53-man roster. He was a guy who was one of those final cuts that they brought back on the 53-man roster, and they called him up over the first few weeks before activating him to the active roster once injuries started happening and they had that extra spot open. I can see something similar happening with Michael Burton. Then following that same pathway, he's going to be on the game day roster as a practice squad call up for the first week or two, or maybe, 2 out of the first 3 or 4 weeks. That's the route I see them going with Michael Burton. And I think that they do carry 4 running backs. And, you mentioned it, RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins are the only running backs who can feel some comfortability about having a roster spot locked up. I wouldn't say locked up for J.K. Dobbins. I do think it is most likely. I think there is a way, because of the way his contract is structured. It's half of it's basically in incentives. It doesn't guarantee him a roster spot, but with what he brings, he's most likely to do it. I think there is a very long shot that he doesn't make it. When I went through and gave him my percentage on the chance to make the roster, I think I gave him at like 90 or 95% likelihood to make it. Just that small chance that he doesn't. And most of that stemming from his injury history. That not necessarily that he doesn't make it around, that he's, something happens during training camp or the preseason and he finds himself hurt and landing on injured reserve or something to that effect instead of the 53-man roster. But even then, if having those 2 guys, RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, you have Tyler Bidet, you have Jaleel McLaughlin, you have Audric Esme, and you have Blake Watson. They are competing for 2 roster spots. And I do expect 4. That is just pretty typical of Sean Payton. 4 running backs, a couple of them contributing on special teams. And I think special teams are going to be huge in determining who those other guys are there at running back. And we have Chase Wallner saying, do you think they can keep SMA on the practice squad? It all depends. There's always this bigger fear of teams losing players on waivers in the final cut downs from players. But every year we see about 10 to 15 players actually get claimed off waivers. And a lot of times it's not players that we're expecting. So it all depends on what Audric Esme does in training camp and preseason, obviously, because that is still his way into making the roster. If he goes out there and does well, he probably earns a roster spot. If he struggles and doesn't earn that roster spot, then the question becomes, do the Broncos even want him back on the practice squad? So it's very 50-50, and I could see the situation being where if he doesn't go out there and he doesn't do well, the Broncos just decide to move on. He's a young player, but again, I mentioned a little bit just a few minutes ago about the 2 fumbles on the 9 carries. That is tough to overlook when you're a coach like Sean Payton. But thank you, Chase, for joining the show. We also have Phil McLaughlin coming in saying, good evening, Eric. Running solo tonight. Hope you're finally feeling better. Taking away Barron and Harvey, which draft do you expect to perform the best this year? As I said at the start of the show, Phil, Lance has started having internet issues about 2 hours ago and wasn't able to make them work. So it is just a solo show for me tonight, which means that it's going to be a little bit shorter. Granted, Friday night shows are meant to be a little bit shorter, especially during the downtime anyways, but it's just me for now. And which draftee do you expect to perform the best this year? Pat Bryant. Taking away Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant. And I think that, I could throw the punter in there because he's the only one that's going to see a large amount of time. I'm not sure if Caleb Lohner ends up making the roster, although he could. Even if he does, it's just as a depth guy in special teams. Q Robinson, a depth guy in special teams, and then Savion Jones is a depth guy. So I think that Pat Bryant's going to have the most opportunity because based on conversations I've had with people in the media, people close to the team, things like that, there seems to be a legit chance that Pat Bryant ends up wide receiver 2. I still expect it to be Devon Vele. And Lance and I talked about it, I think last week, maybe the week before, where with Devon, I'm pretty sure it was last week, but where Devon Vele's injury is opening that door a little bit more for Pat Bryant to win that number 2 wide receiver job. It's definitely possible, but even then he's going to be a large part of that rotation, and injuries at wide receiver, they're likely going to happen, unfortunately. And he's going to be one of those first guys that they look upon to stepping up into it. So Pat Bryant would be my answer there. Roy saying, hey there, Eric, I'm trying to go to the meet and greet this year. Hey, that's great to hear. I hope a lot of people can make it out. It's always a fun time. It's always enjoyable. I got my tickets all bought and everything for my flights. And I'm super excited about that because it's only a day. It's not an overnight flight. I leave early in the morning on the Saturday beforehand and fly back on Monday. So still short travel time, but hey, it is what it is. When you live in Alaska, you kind of got to make for that short turnaround for travel, but I've gotten used to it here. Todd Ossendorf also adding Jaquan McMillan is another one that could be on the outside looking in when the regular season starts. My thing with Jaquan McMillan is he either makes the team or is traded. They don't cut him because he is at the very least really valuable depth, even if he is only a slot only corner, because Riley Moss has had the issues of staying healthy, right? And when you have that on the boundary and you have somebody like Jade Barron, who's going to be your starting nickel, who can play outside, well, if Riley Moss gets hurt, you then put Jade Barron on the outside, and you insert Jaquan McMillan back in the slot where he has a season starting experience under his belt. So I don't expect him to get cut, but traded is entirely likely. It just depends on what they want to do for the depth. And with Chris Abrams-Drain, who's mentioned, he's probably one of those guys that you're probably looking at him as that fifth corner. If he does step up, I think that opens the door for the Broncos being even more willing to trade McMillan. But again, I don't think, unless Chris Abrams-Drain go out there and becomes a star, which I'm not expecting, I don't think that it'll make the Broncos getting comfortable to a place where they would cut McMillan. Very cheap. He's a cheap player. You still have a year of cost control with Jaquan McMillan. There is still a lot of value both for the Broncos with him as a depth piece and a lot of value on the trade market to where you don't cut a player like that. Going through here, and we have Eric Flynn coming in with some stars, but has nothing to say. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate that. Roy saying that's what he would be doing. Yeah, the short turnaround kind of stinks. It definitely makes me really exhausted the following Tuesday. Take some time, a little bit of time away from the family as I just kind of recover physically from that and mentally. But the meet and greet is such a fun time. It's so worth it. And such a fun. I hope you're able to make it out there, Roy. It'd be great to meet you. Todd Ossendorf also adding, Drew Sanders has to be another player feeling the pinch this offseason. He's yet to really make the field much. Dre Greenlaw and Singleton are like the likely starters, so what is left? Todd, you and I are in 100% agreement here. I don't expect Drew Sanders to make the roster whatsoever. I mentioned how Audric Estime was one of my players I was going to get into. Drew Sanders is another one of them. I do not expect him to make the roster whatsoever because, one, there's been some stuff that both Nick and I have heard, and we've kind of alluded to it on the morning shows a little bit about Drew Sanders and his, how do I put this? His ability to pick things up. And you can read between the lines and try to figure out what I'm meaning by that. But there's some concerns there about his ability to pick things up. And he's had a couple years in the scheme. Granted, his position has fluctuated a little bit, but it should be a point where he's really has the scheme aspect of it down. And he doesn't seem to. Granted, he did deal with the injury last year, but you can still do the mental work in it. And that doesn't seem to have been do much for him, I guess would be the best way to put it. So I really question Drew Sanders and his ability to make this. He'd have to go out there and do a star. And I think they got a special teams replacement for him in Q Robinson, right? Because what keeps Drew Sanders somewhat valuable is he is a really good special teams player. He showed that last year. But now you have Q Robinson to take that over, who's an even better special teams player coming into the NFL than Drew Sanders was last year. Granted, you have to question if Q Robinson can make that jump. So that's why you're keeping Drew Sanders around through training camp, just as insurance in case Q Robinson doesn't. But if Drew Sanders is going to make this team, it's going to be through what he does on special teams and through Q Robinson struggling to pick up the special teams aspect of it. It's not going to be for defense. As you said, you have Alex Singleton, you have Dre Greenlaw. Both of them have medical concerns, but the Broncos brought back Justin Strnad. Now, don't get me wrong, Justin Strnad wasn't great last year, but he was better than Cody Barton, although that gets overlooked because Cody Barton made some splash plays. Justin Strnad is still not a guy that you want out there starting, but he is that third linebacker. And I know from multiple conversations that they really have a lot of faith in Lavelle Bailey, not just on defense, but on special teams. He's another one that could push Drew Sanders out because of what he can bring on special teams. And Lavelle Bailey, from a couple conversations that I've had, conversing with Nick, who's had a couple conversations with people, they seem to be eyeballing Lavelle Bailey as a replacement for Alex Singleton after this year, but they obviously have to see that growth from Lavelle Bailey. So Drew Sanders being moved to linebacker, it's great, but the question is, does he have what it takes from the neck up to be a linebacker? The athleticism is great, but we see it time and time again with linebackers coming to the NFL. They can be great athletes, but if they struggle with it mentally and if they struggle with it intellectually, they can struggle at the NFL level because a lot of it is playing the brain game. The linebackers are the quarterback of the defense, so you got to be able to, pick things up and have that going for it. So if anybody else has players who might be on the on the hot seat, go ahead and mention them. Going to say hello to Michael Ronquillos and good evening, Eric, on the Dev Valley Drivers. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, Michael, for joining in. Appreciate that. Joining in every single week. And then Sutton is looking like the number 1 right now. Vele number 2. Mims is likely number 3. So number 4 is probably Pat Bryant, although Troy Franklin has been showing up. Where does the rising Pat Bryant push Franklin to? So we kind of talked about wide receivers last week. I think that Mims is a gadget player. I don't think we shouldn't be labeling him as like the number 3 or anything, because he's going to be moved around the formation, and it's going to be used sparingly. I would be a little bit surprised if Marvin Mims saw more than 400 snaps on offense this year. Last year, he only played like a little bit, about 320, 330. And then as a rookie, he played about 360 to 370 snaps. I'm not expecting much of a change there. They're just going to use him in a variety of ways. So I'm still thinking that it's going to be Sutton is your number 1. There's obviously no argument about that. And then number 2 and number 3, I think that is going to end up being a little bit interchangeable. Sean Payton last year talked about really liking Devon Vele as a big slot, and that's a role that a lot of us are talking about with Pat Bryant. I know I've mentioned it as a Pat Bryant as a big slot. I know, and Devon Vele, he can do that. But I think they can be a little bit interchangeable as that number 2 and working as that big slot. So I think Pat Bryant is technically your number 3 receiver, with Marvin Mims being that gadget player. Troy Franklin, 60 to 70% chance he makes the roster. I know a lot of people have a lot of issue with that, but he still has a lot of growth and development to do. I think it's more likely than not that he does make it, and the Broncos could use him. I have an article up on Mile Huddle that talks about that, about the value that he brings with his speed and his ability to take off the top off vertically, and how in the Sean Payton offense, that's really good because Sean Payton likes to work horizontally and spread things out and use spacing. But to do that to its max, you got to have that guy to take the top off, even if you're not challenging vertically, multiple times. Even if it's just 5 to 10 times a game, it's still enough to keep them pulling. So the wide receiver room, it's a little iffy, but I think Pat Bryant, he's at the bottom of it. And I'm not throwing Trent Sherfield in there, even though word is that he's been having he had a really good camp in OTAs working as a wide receiver. But him as a special teams player, I still put him below Troy Franklin. I think that's what they're going to be looking at him for, being a gunner more so than anything, more than an offense, outside of a few times in certain situations where he's being thrown as a blocker. So that's kind of how it looks at right now. Sutton is number 1. Vele, Bryant, that's your number 2, number 3, interchangeable. Mims is a gadget player that's going to be lined up in the backfield, lined up in the slot, lined up out wide, and all that. And there's actually a really good article up on ESPN that talks about luxury players. And I did an article up on it because Marvin Mims was listed as a luxury player, as a gadget player. Bill Barnwell did it. Have a lot of respect for Bill Barnwell. Dude's absolutely great what he does. And in it, he mentioned a couple numbers for it, and how with Marvin Mims working from the boundary, working from the outside, he averaged like 0.8 yards per reception or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. But if you move him to just exclude that boundary and just do the slot and the backfield work, it's like 5.5 yards per reception, which is absolutely phenomenal. Which is why I think that Marvin Mims, gadget player more so than being the number 3 guy. And you also throw Evan Ingram in there, who's more of a big slot wide receiver and than a true inline tight end, but he's more inline tight end that's going to move out in the slot. It's interchangeable. We're going to see a lot of different looks. Sean Payton's done that throughout his whole career as a head coach. Chase coming in asking if I liked Sanders coming out of college. I did. I really like the athletic ability and hoped that you can teach the technique, because he was an edge player at Alabama, went to transfer to Arkansas, was moved to off ball. So there was still a lot of learning stuff that you had to develop, had a question about him, seeing if he could pick things up. And I had faith that he could, but when you're, entering year 3 now for him, and you're still hearing that he has had issues picking up the defense, he's having issues with the verbiage of the defense, he's having issues knowing exactly what his role is in the defense, on certain plays and certain packages, going back to when he did see the field late last year. I'm not overly optimistic of him. Probably going to be eating crow. I liked him coming out of college, but he seems to be one of those guys that was a bit of a bust for it. Michael saying that he had Troy Franklin as a stock down player for him. Let's see here. Michael Davis saying the Broncos of Brass is putting a ton of stock in their strength and conditioning program going forward. Anyone else a little nervous about that? Yes. Now, I've talked about this before, Michael, and a lot of people bring up the lack of injuries the Broncos had over the last few years in the last 2 years, which is great. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome that they haven't had as many injuries as they did, 3+ years ago, what they were dealing with for so long. I am so pleased with that. I am super happy that that is an issue. But when Sean Payton came in, one of the first things he started doing was purging the roster of these guys who are often injured. Tim Patrick's gone. Greg Dulcich is gone. A couple other guys are gone. And now he's bringing guys in with these injury concerns. They avoided it for the first couple of years. Now this offseason, they brought them in. So this is going to be a true test of how much it is the strength and conditioning program and the training staff, the medical staff, the conditioning staff, how much of it really is them and what they're doing in the building, what they're doing to get these guys ready, and how much of it was Sean Payton purging the roster of those types of players. This is going to be a very telling year for that, I think. And I'm cautiously optimistic about it because if Talanoa Hufanga, if Evan Ingram, if Dre Greenlaw, if these guys can stay healthy and out there on the field, they can have a serious impact, especially on the defense. And I think that there is a legitimate case where this defense could be the best in the NFL this next year if those guys are healthy. I just don't think we get a full season out of any of them, unfortunately. Let's see here. Yeah, congratulations to Wade Phillips. He made the all-century team from ESPN. I saw that, which was awesome. Champ Bailey made it as well, if I remember correctly. And so it is it's always cool when you get things like that. Wade Phillips had a really cool comment on Twitter. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. If I had Lance, I could pass it over to him and I can search it for you. But I don't have Lance, so I can't do that for you. But it was a cool comment and everything, expressing how thankful he was. But guys, if you have any questions or comments in here, get them in. I mean, this show's flown by. Doesn't seem like we've been live for 22 minutes now, but we have been. I'm only going to be live for about 8 to 10 minutes more just because being by myself, it is very tough on the throat. And I could already feel my mouth getting dry and my throat getting a little sore, but I'll keep going. I'll tough it out for a little bit. And all that. And Michael saying Lance did us up today. Lance is too busy hating on Bo Nix. Like he keeps posting. No, all joking aside, Lance's internet took a crud and he just wasn't able to join. I haven't been able to hear from him for a couple hours now, actually, since he informed me that his internet was going through. I reached out to him about 15 minutes before going live, seeing if what the status update was, and got nothing from him. Michael asking, who is more important on the Broncos defense, Zach Allen or Nick Benito? Zach Allen. Not that Nick Benito isn't great, but Zach Allen just does so much more for those around him compared to Nick Benito. And Nick Benito, he capitalizes off that a little bit more. Nick Benito is a good pass rusher. He's got that 101 mile per hour fastball as a pass rusher, and that's the only tool in his arsenal. But hey, it works. It's effective. It creates havoc for opposing quarterbacks. It creates sacks. It creates turnovers. It's a great thing to have. But Zach Allen, his ability to pull double teams, to pull attention, it creates one-on-one opportunities for Jonathan Cooper, for John Franklin Myers, for Nick Benito. And it just helps open up so much anymore. And it even opens up the door for linebackers coming downhill. So it is always Zach Allen. To me, there's no debate there. It is Zach Allen pretty easily for it. Todd Ossendorf mentioning Ayoma Uwazurike is another player that is on the hot seat. Savion Jones is a young addition to the front seven. Dondre Tillman is up-and-coming player. DJ Jones is back. Does Uwa stick? Again, just semantics here. Not counting Dondre Tillman as part of that group because Dondre Tillman's an edge rusher. He's part of the Nick Benito, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis. He's part of that group. But Uwazurike, he definitely is impacted by Savion Jones. He's impacted by Jordan Jackson if they just continue to like him. He's impacted to an extent of DJ Jones being brought back. Granted, DJ Jones is a nose tackle like Malcolm Roach, and Uwazurike is more of that 4-5 technique like Cooper or like Allen, John Franklin Myers, Jones, those types of players. So when you look at the defensive line, you're typically looking at 6 guys being kept around. And if we go through and we look at it, you have Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach, and Savion Jones. You have 5 guys on that defensive line that are pretty much guaranteed. Zach Allen's going to be getting an extension. I've mentioned that before. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. John Franklin-Myers, he's earned his ability to stick around. I would be very surprised if the Broncos traded him. Savion Jones, the guy they traded up for to get in the 3rd round, obviously he's going to stick around. DJ Jones just brought back Malcolm Roach. He's on a contract where they can move on from, but I wouldn't expect it. So who's that 6th guy? Matt Henningsen, Uwazurike, Jordan Jackson, all of them are in a competition for that final spot for it. Just based off of last year and with what we saw out of Jordan Jackson, I would like to see Henningsen or Uwazurike step up and earn that spot. Just because Jordan Jackson was abysmal out there on the field. He was a complete liability. But Uwazurike, when he saw the field at times when he did see the field last year, it wasn't bad actually. He actually did pretty well, so maybe he can step up now that he's not suspended for being not the sharpest tool in the shed, I'll put it that way. And he's able to continue his step forward, his growth and steps forward, and develops as a player to earn that 6th spot. So yeah, I mean, anybody else out there for... All right. Todd Austin saying rotating with DJ Jones too. He has the size for it. No. Uwazurike doesn't really play that 0-1 technique. He does have the size for it, but just it's the way. It's not necessarily just having the size, it's also the way they're built. The way Uwazurike is built, he's not built to be that 0-1 technique, to handle the double teams, to handle that at the point of the attack. We saw that his rookie season. The New York Jets game, I think it was, his rookie season, so 2 years ago, was a abysmal game from him as a run defender. So I am not a fan of putting him in as a nose tackle where run defense is critical. You got to be able to handle the double teams, and that's just not Uwazurike. He's a little bit quicker, not super quick though, but he's going to wear down blockers in a one-on-one segment, and that's kind of a 4-eye 5 technique spot instead of a 0-1. So I don't believe he's part of that rotation there. I believe that rotation is going to be DJ Jones and Malcolm Roach, and that is when they use that, because I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos use more 2-man fronts this year with basically 2 4-eye, 2-3 technique type players in Allen and Franklin-Myers. Adam Doss saying Shefty was on with McCaffrey talking about Jalen Ramsey being traded before training camp. We're stacked, but Ramsey upset PS2 would be reminiscent of the historic team. We don't comp unproven teams. It's just not feasible. It's a nice idea to an extent, but Jalen Ramsey, he's definitely fallen off a little bit. He's not quite the player he was. If I remember right, I might be mistaken. I might be getting my years mixed up with Jalen Ramsey, but if I remember right, part of his issue with Miami is he's wanting a new contract as well. Even though he just got one, I believe last year, he's already wanting a renegotiate his contract. So that might be a bit of an issue with it. The fit is fine in terms of scheme, but I don't see the point in giving up compensation to get Jalen Ramsey with where he's at. I would stick with Jahdae Barron and Riley Moss as your other corners. Michael coming in saying, I'm a big believer in Jonah Ellis being the linchpin of free agency this year. Hear me out. If Ellis has a 10 plus 10 sack season, but Ito becomes expendable, then we know we can sign Allen and Sutton. The Broncos are in a fine cap spot to where if they really wanted to, and with the way they, adding this in here real quick, with the way that they have shown to structure contracts, they can easily get Benito, Allen, Sutton, and John Franklin-Myers done and be more than fine to add other big name free agents. They're in a fine spot cap-wise. It's all doable with the way they're structuring it, and it's also doable when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. So that aside, this is part of the reason why I'm content with Denver if they wait out the season to sign Nick Benito to an extension, because you also have the franchise tag to play with a little bit. Because if he goes out there and has a great season and you want to re-sign him and he meets the expectations and builds off of what he did last year, franchise tag him. I know players don't like franchise tag, but it's a utensil at the team's disposal to use. It buys you a little bit extra time to where you can, get through the free agency, get through the draft with that franchise tag cost sitting on the salary cap throughout it. Even if he doesn't sign, it's still sitting on the salary cap. And then come June, July, you can work out that long-term extension. or just have them play out on the franchise tag. Use them as trade bait. It gives you more options to do that instead of signing him this year, where I think there's more risk to extend Benito now coming off the hot season than I do with like a Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Cortland Sutton, any of them, because they've had multiple years of it. And while Nick Benito has gotten better every single year, last year, there's still a belief that possibility that last year was a little bit of a fluke, and you really want to see him develop as a run defender if you're going to go sign him to a $20+ million on an average per year contract. So I'm in agreement with you. I would wait it out and see if Ellis can and help make Benito expendable. And if that happens, I would still franchise tag Nick Benito and then look to trade him. Michael Warren saying, who is more important to the Broncos offense between Audric Esme or Jaleel McLaughlin behind RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins? I believe Jaleel McLaughlin because he brings something to the offense that the other three don't. Now, you can get by with using J.K. Dobbins or Harvey in as that slasher back role. And for those of you who don't know, a slasher back is they're very bursty. It's basically one plant and go. Like you're planting your foot and you're cutting upfield and you're getting up there. That's Jaleel McLaughlin. And that is a type of running back that every Sean Payton team has had, except for maybe even in the last 2 years, because he's had Jaleel McLaughlin. Keep thinking that last year was McLaughlin's first year, but he's been around for 2 years. Anyways, so that is what they've kind of used him at, and he really hit his stride late last season in that role. Wasn't a great season on the whole, but to close it out, Jaleel McLaughlin actually had a pretty good show. It actually did pretty well. So I think he's there, and I think that it's easier to replicate what Audric Esme brings to this offense with J.K. Dobbins than it is to replicate what McLaughlin is, especially for a third running back. Phil McLaughlin saying, Eric, what is your opinion on new stadium located where Burnham Yard currently exists? I am not overly familiar with Denver's layout, I don't know where Burnham Yard is. But I'm intrigued. I'm curious with the plans. I know that they'll kind of want to make a overall, experience there. I know if I remember right, the talk is putting in a dome, which I believe if I remember correctly, the NFL has flat out said that the only way Denver will host Super Bowl is if they get a dome because of the weather issues. So I'm excited. I've always been excited for a new stadium. I like the current one, but I'd like to see something new and modern and in a dome as well. A retractable roof dome, one that can open and close. Just to best take advantage of what the weather can be like in Denver here. And guys, I'm going to just take a quick second to get a drink of water real quick. All right. Throat was just burning a little bit. So Todd Osler saying, who should be worried about Q Robinson taking the job? I know Benito and Cooper are starters, but they do like to have a good rotation for edge rushers. No one. 5 edge rushers, Benito, Cooper, Tillman, Ellis, Robinson, in no particular order. That's it. Q Robinson, I'd be surprised if he plays more than 100 snaps on defense, barring injury. He's going to be a main special teams player. I would expect him to keep the 5 guys there. It's what they did last year. It's what Sean Payton's done pretty typically, keeping those 5 edge rushers around. So that's just kind of how I view that breakdown of it. Michael saying, I don't know if they can get all 3. When I say all 3, I mean long-term. It's doable. It's very easy. Salary cap's about to go explode even more. It's just going to go up every single year. And with the way the Broncos backload contracts, by the time Bo Nix is going to be up for a contract, they can structure these deals to where they already have the big cap hits out of the way. It's doable. It's easy to do. It's not hard at all. Even with new players coming in, even with incoming rookies, even with veterans, with the way the Broncos structure contracts, they can get all 4 of them done. It's nothing to worry about. There's no thing there. The bigger question isn't if they can do it. The question is if they decide to do it. That's where it kind of falls. Doable, but will they? Let's see if there's anything else here. Todd saying, I think we can end up missing Benito. Entirely possible. When you get a guy who has that fastball like he does, that a lot of offensive tackles just don't know how to counter. Yeah, it's very possible for that. Adam saying, are you salmon fishing? Not this year, unfortunately. Barring any changes for it. A guy I know who I used to go out fishing with. Unfortunately, he's had some severe medical issues coming up. He was an older gentleman. He played at Oregon with Dan Fouts. That's to kind of give his age away a little bit, but because of his medical reasons, he moved down to, I believe, Arizona, for some of the medical facilities there, as well as being closer to his family there as well, which is completely understandable. I just hope that he's doing okay. I haven't heard from him for a while, but so no expectation of salmon fishing or any fishing. I don't own a dip net myself to go stand in the river, and I'm not sure I'd want to go stand in the river. I'm not a very big outdoorsy person, really. Michael saying, thanks for doing this for Broncos country, Eric, by yourself. Hey, it's no problem. I appreciate it. It's a little hard on the throat. But I am going to be wrapping it up here in just a matter of a few minutes. So any final questions, now's the time to get them in. And then how secure is PJ Locke's position on the team? That fully depends on JL Skinner and not so much Devin Key, but the safety that they signed. I can't remember his name. They signed him from Carolina, who's a special team safety. And special teams is going to be key. I think they would like to keep PJ Locke around because of what he could do on special teams, because he at least has that starting experience. And all that. And so it just depends on special teams. Michael saying, I disagree, Eric. We cannot afford all three. They can. It's not a matter of opinion on that. It's fact. Denver can afford all three of them. They can afford all four of them. It's just a matter of fact. The question is, when you have rich owners, it enables you to structure contracts a little bit different way with bonuses and stuff like that. Because I've already explained it long before. I don't want to get into all the details of it, but it's doable. It's very easy for them to do. They have the cap space for it. They have the cash on hand for it. They can do it. All four of them, Sutton, Allen, Benito, Myers, all of them can be extended. They can even throw Malcolm Roach in there. They can even throw Alex Singleton in there. They're fine on the financials aspect of it. The question again is, will they? I don't think they will, but it's all very doable. And that's just a matter of fact. And then Phil McLaughlin saying, I thought Benito took a big step up last year. And if he does that again this year, I would not like to lose him. He did take a step up last year. One thing that does concern me a little bit was the garbage time sacks. 7.5 of his sacks came in garbage time, where I believe the win probability was 95-5. And so that's concerning. But his performance did take a step up as a pass rusher, as a run defender. Not so much. He was still a liability here. And Michael, just to clarify, I'm not saying they will. There's a difference between saying they will and saying they can. And I've said it, and just to make clear, they can. That is a matter of fact. If you can I can pull it up and I can show it here. If I had somebody to pass it off to, well, I can take the time to type it up and look and go into that and had more time to explain it all. They can financially do it. Just will they do it? Two different conversations here. I would be very surprised if all four of them are back on the Broncos next year. I would expect at least 3 of the 4. With, just to be clear, Allen, Sutton, and Benito being the 3. I think John Frankenmeyers is in his last year in Denver. Unless he takes his bargain of a deal. But it's doable. It's very easy. Denver's sitting at like $80 million in salary cap space. And if you look at what they did with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw and Evan Ingram, all 3 of those guys signed for about $15 million in salary cap space. The salary cap next year is projected to go up by about, I believe, close to $20 million. And then I believe the year after that, they're talking about $30 to $40 million in salary cap space as new deals are coming up because of streaming, broadcast streaming with Netflix and Amazon Prime, and those things really coming in and hitting the aspect of the salary cap. So salary cap's only going to continue to balloon up even more. So again, they could do it. Will they? That's the question. Michael saying, great show tonight. Eric on the Death Valley, Deep Divers, Go Broncos. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, any final things in here? Just going to do a quick scan of the chat. I appreciate everybody who jumped in. Todd Austin was saying, get those thumbs up, folks. Yes, definitely. Seeing a couple of angry faces, a wow face. Appreciate that, Phil, with the wow face. Jerry McCurry giving the love insignia over on Facebook. A bunch of likes on there. We got 33 total. And then currently 77 eyes on which, hey, it's summer. It's a Friday night. I get it. It's almost 8 p.m. Mountain Time. I get it. Uh, so I appreciate everybody joining in. I appreciate you guys for joining this conversation and being understanding of Lance's internet issues and being unable to join me. But I think we can go a week without hearing him hate on Bo Nix and talk about moving Riley Moss at safety for a week. And when I talk to him, I'm definitely going to tell him to listen to his back so he can hear me ribbing on him. But no, I love Lance. Dude's one of my best friends. Appreciate him a lot. And unfortunate that he didn't get his internet down because this topic was pretty much his idea, actually. From a conversation we had a few days ago, kind of stemmed from that, and sent the conversation in, got the room made, and then get told his internet took a crud on him and not working. So appreciate everybody joining in and joining being part of the conversation. I want to say special thanks you to Papa Bear McGilrath, to Phil McLaughlin, to Michael Ronquillo, for you guys all joining in and super chatting stars. Flynn, Mike Flynn, and I believe there was another one I believe as well. Understand completely that not everybody is able to do so financially, and especially in these times, especially with the way prices are and everything. And I just appreciate you guys joining in and doing that. And on that note, one thing you guys can do that only takes a matter of time and costs no money, whatever. Subscribe, like, and share. It just takes a matter of about 15 seconds on whatever platform you're on, and it just really helps us out with the algorithms, which we are ever fighting and ever annoying because they're ever changing. Hate dealing with algorithms on it. With the algorithms on this. Let's see here. Who did I miss on the hot seat, Eric? There was one other player that I had on the hot seat. I guess I just kind of spent the time talking with you guys in the chat and not giving my own. I only had 3 because it was supposed to be a back and forth with Lance, and I was going to focus on this. And we talked about Drew Sanders, we talked about Audric Estime. The other one that I had on the hot seat was I can't remember now. The safety. I mentioned his name when I was talking about PJ Locke, but it wasn't PJ Locke. Devin Key. Devin Key was the other one. Not a big time veteran. Another guy that was just depth last year. Really struggled last year when he did see the field, and he's essentially been replaced. So it is that was my 3. I don't know who Lance's 3 were. I believe one of Lance's was going to be Jaleel McLaughlin. I believe, if I remember correctly. Lance, unlucky Lance, he is definitely unlucky about that. Michael saying Eric does this because he wants to give Broncos Country great content on the Denver Broncos organization. I do what I can, even though I'm not liked by everyone. I do what I can to provide what I can, provide what insight, provide my honest opinions on it, even though I know that some of them aren't going to always be agreed upon. And I appreciate the understanding that sometimes opinions can change. Adam saying excellent content. Keep Orange crushing for Broncos Country. My Broncos fight is check. My Broncos fight check is checked. Liked, commented, shared, and subscribed. Appreciate that, Michael. Again, it helps us out so much. And then what about Delaire and Turner Yell? Honestly, Todd, I forgot he was on the roster. Otherwise, he would have been my guy over Devin Key. But I forgot he was on the roster. Just goes to show the impact that he's made. My surprise cut is like Patrick in 2024 is Singleton. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe next week, Lance and I will go a surprise cut for you. We'll be keeping them a little bit shorter over the next couple weeks, but I'm still rambling here. We'll be keeping it shorter. Maybe we can do a surprise cut or 2 for us. Vincent saying it's going to be a great season. Can't wait to see us rock on, get her done Broncos. It is. I have a lot of hopes for the Broncos this season, which is, if you guys have been following Mile High Huddle for a while, you know that it's very unusual for me to be this optimistic about the team, to have them with a winning record. I can't remember the last time I had the Broncos with a winning record. I think even last year I had them at 8-10, maybe 9 or 8-9, whatever it is. So yeah, it's definitely different. A.T. Perry is not my not so big surprise cut. Yeah. I would be surprised if A.T. Perry even sticks around on the practice squad at this rate. Dealing with an injury now as well. But anyways, guys, I do got to wrap it up there. I can smell my wife's dinner. I am hungry. I have had not a lot to eat today. And I am very hungry. Adam Doss. Okay. Quick thoughts on the new punter. I'm intrigued. It was a guy that was handpicked by Darren Rizzi, and Darren Rizzi has enough experience and shown more than enough for me to put my complete and utter trust in him when it comes out to picking the punter. So I'm optimistic about it. Not even cautiously. I'm just optimistic about it. One thing, when I did go through and I watched some Jeremy Crenshaw and Crawshaw, sorry, not Crenshaw, Crawshaw, and I was talking about him with a friend of mine who's a special teams coordinator, is he really hyped up his ability to do everything. He can placement, he can place it, he can power, he can do everything that you want your punter to do. You just got to clean up the techniques with a lot of it. And jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. Or master, yeah, whatever the saying is. Jack of all trades, master of none. There we go. And you just got to clean up a little bit of the technique stuff and everything. And again, that's where my trust in Darren Rizzi here. Let's see how long we can keep Eric here. You guys can keep me here for a while. I just know that I do have a hard limit of when I have to get off of here because of scheduling with Facebook. Otherwise, they kick me off. But yeah, there are times where I can be a people pleaser. So when you guys ask questions, I keep answering them. But anyways, guys, I do need to try to get out of here. I am very hungry. I'm surprised you guys haven't heard my stomach growl at all yet. Same, go enjoy food. Yes, especially my wife's cooking. She does a phenomenal job with it. We've only been eating chicken basically since I've been losing weight over the last year. Even though the month of May was terrible for me, I ended up putting on 15 pounds because it's just a bad month for things. So eating a lot of chicken, and there's only so many ways I can cook chicken, but she comes up with new things pretty regularly and keeps me from getting tired of just eating chicken so often. A lot of ground turkey as well. But anyways, guys, Todd, when did I start the beard? Started growing it in early May, shaved it for the draft show, and then started growing it. So it's been about a month, and this is where it's at. A little under a month. I guess I should say about 3 weeks. I joke, I hate it. My wife loves it. Keeping around to keep my wife happy. And the other night, she actually came up to me and says, "You can shave it if you want." And I knew it was a test, and I told her, I was like, "I know, but you love it." And she goes, "I do love it." And the look on her face, and I still hate it. It's annoying. I got to get a hair trimmer and trimmer of it. 42. The meaning of life is 42. So that is that. If you get the reference, hats off to you. Let me know what the reference is, because I know that it's a reference to a movie, but I can't remember which one. My wife likes the movie. I remember that because she says that all the time. Michael saying, "Let Eric get some dinner, please." Yes, guys, I do got to get out of here now. Just got a text from the wife saying that dinner is ready. But anyways, guys, as I said before, if you aren't able to do so financially, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. That is one way that you guys can help us out with the show. It only takes a matter of 15 seconds. It helps us with the algorithms that are ever changing and ever so frustrating because of the fact that they're ever changing. And you guys can also, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, or even if you're listening here live on Facebook, on YouTube, on whatever, you can go to Spotify or Apple and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag. Every single month, you have to tune into Chad and Zach for that. You can follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between mile and high and huddle. And if you are able to do so financially and you don't want to, you guys can go check out mhhmerch.com to get some gear on, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. They have different hats, different shirts, mugs. The Valley Divers hat, I got to get around to getting myself a Broncos for Breakfast hat now that I'm part of that show, so I'm not wearing this one on it. You guys can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MileHighHuddle and facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod. You can follow us on Twitter, X, whatever it is you want to call it, at MileHighHuddle, at the MHHPod, and at DVDD_pod. You can also follow me on Twitter, specifically at Erick Trickel, capital E, capital T, Trickel, by the way, not LE, like the one NASCAR driver who I'm related to. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for joining in so much. We appreciate you. Hope you guys will see you over over the next couple weeks. I know it's the downtime of the off season, so if you guys have any topic ideas, feel free to hit us up in the YouTube comments. I do check those somewhat regularly. And then, or you can reach out to us on Twitter or Facebook or whatever and give us a like there. Jason Bonnie. Yeah, can't say the first name live though, but yeah, related to him. Funny story about why there's the name switch from LE to EL. Hilarious story, but also one that I can't get into going on live here because of some of the context of the conversations. In here and okay, last one, Todd. I cook on Valentine's Day. I cook for her birthday, and I cook for our anniversary, which is tomorrow. We'll have been married for our 7-year anniversary is tomorrow. So I got some steaks to cook up for her. Got some stuff to make drinks. I've been trying my hand at making cocktails lately. Tried making margaritas a few years ago. Terrible at it. Turning my hand to martinis tomorrow for that. But anyways, Todd asking what's your favorite Broncos player not named Elway? Champ Bailey. Huge Champ Bailey fan. I mean, so talked about this before. I used to be a big Packers fan when I was younger. And in fact, when the Broncos beat the Packers in the Super Bowl way back when, I was at my grandfather's house, who was a big Broncos fan. I was in the gym for the Packers. I was like 4 or 5 years old at the time. He picked me up, set me outside on the doorstep outside, locked the door, and just left me there for the last quarter of the game, basically. It was fine. My uncle was outside doing stuff, working on a car out there. So it was fine. It's not like I was out there without adult supervision. But when I started getting to really be a Broncos fan in the early 2000s, Jam Bailey, he was that reason. Just watching him play, that's what helped make me fall in love with football a little bit and fall in love with the Broncos. And now here I am all these years later. Thank you for the congratulations on the anniversary. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, everyone. Everyone joining in. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday night. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Don't drink and drive. Stay safe. And as my good friend Nick always says, make sure you choose kindness and compassion. I will see you guys on Monday morning, bright and early. Hope you guys have a good weekend. And of course, go Broncos.